The newest production of A Streetcar Named Desire transports the play to the 21st century and finds the cast performing on a transparent, revolving set. The New York Times calls this version a wounding portrait of communal loss. Streetcar runs until June 4th at Brooklyn's St. Anne's Warehouse. Joining me now, the cast: Gillian Anderson, who plays Blanche Dubois, Ben Foster, who plays Stanley Kowalski, and Vanessa Kirby, who plays Stella. I am pleased to have each of them at this table. Welcome.
Good to be here. Good to see you.
How do you approach this character that a number of actors have, especially Marlon Brando?
I suppose it's about actively forgetting that it was marked by Kazan, it was marked by Brando. It cast such a long shadow. Benedict Andrews, our director, said he wanted to explore the material in an out-of-time, and was much more interested in the returning soldier aspect. Right. And that seemed like a new door that we could unpack.
Is it a role you jump at?
I hadn't seen the film. I hadn't seen the play, at least 15 years. By rereading it, it's daunting on paper. It's daunting. Its history is daunting. But upon reading it and talking with Benedict, I felt like we could find a new way in.
Is Blanche daunting?
I don't know about daunting. Exciting, I think. I had wanted to do this for 30 years, and it seems like it took that long to realize the production. And I trusted Benedict enough from the things that I had seen him direct in the past to leave everything at the door and walk in completely with fresh eyes, and really glad that that I started with a clean slate, because we immediately just started from word one, punctuation one, to dig into it in a really forensic way.
What's the difference in a good stage director and a good film director?
What I do know about Benedict Andrews is that he's a very, very smart man, and he is his interest is in the truth of whatever piece it is that he's working with. So whether he contemporizes it or not, we are always digging into the interactions between the characters, and what the text is telling us is the truth of every single moment, and we move from truth to truth to truth to truth. And if it doesn't fly, then we adjust it, and that's part of what this reincarnation is, going back in and just tweaking those little moments just to historically build the relationships. And
Vanessa, I think you said that Stella was avoiding reality.
You know, it's easy to forget that they're sisters from the same place, and that they've experienced the same history, and they've just gone in, you know, they're just taking different paths, and Stella's run away in the same way Blanche has, but has found herself in an equally destructive situation, but that is more accepted by society. So in Stanley, she can avoid and run away and deny the history. You know, she doesn't tell him about Belle-Reve. I always hear it in the first scene when he says, "You're from Laurel. Where are you from, Blanche?" Laurel. You know, and it seems strange that her husband doesn't even know really where Stella's from. So right from the beginning, we have. I was really aware that she had this history that she wasn't able to face and wasn't able to confront.
What's the set that is so revolutionary here?
We do it in the round. Yeah. It's on a rotating stage.
So it's constantly revolving? Constantly
revolving at different speeds and in different directions. And it's a transparent set, so there are no walls. It's a very lean, stark metal outline of an apartment.
Isn't it?
It's like an X-ray. Yeah.
Yeah. What does it say about a play that, I mean, Tennessee Williams is 50 years old, and yet it's relevant? You're putting it in a contemporary setting, a different setting. I mean, it just simply says that it still speaks to, you know, all those issues that are part of the human experience, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's fear and shame and guilt and the ways that we...
Embarrassment.
Yeah, and the ways that we all try to deny the truth of ourselves, and but also the human nature to fight for one's own survival, whether it's Stanley fighting for that or Stella or Blanche. Tennessee talks about the, I can never remember what the words are but he talks about the abuse and belittlement of the tender, and those are not the descriptives that he uses.
But if it's as good a playwright as Tennessee Williams, do you just look at the text and say, this is what I need right here?
Oh, yeah.
I don't need to go any further. I don't need to.
I mean, it's all. I mean, it's. I mean, further into what the text says.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, going into the past based on what the text says, and obviously the history at that time of the South and women's place in the world, and what was expected of females at the time, and the patriarchal society, et cetera, particularly in the South at that time, is all informative. But the text is the thing.
I grew up in the South, and I grew up in North Carolina. You know, and I've known people like the characters at every stage of my life. You know, there's always somebody who's a very strong woman. There's also always a woman who somehow is worldly, in terms of her aspirations, and in terms of what she reads, what she wants to do. You know.
Well, I think that potentially Blanche, that Blanche had that potential if it weren't for the course of events that happened, if it weren't for her falling in love with a gay man very young, and being responsible or feeling responsible for his killing himself, and then what happened historically with their house, etc. If those events hadn't happened, she probably would have found a way to be a strong partner to someone. She's certainly outspoken enough in this incarnation of it that even though she, you know, she would have continued to be dependent upon people and her other half. I imagine that she would not have held her tongue.
So much of this is about trauma and post-traumatic stress, so whether an event happens or not happens, it's how we cope. And this play feels so much about unpacking the ideas of how we've been hurt and how we deal with those hurts, and then how do we push those wounds into each other. Blanche is coming from a war, it seems. Stanley's coming from Salerno, and these wounded warriors are meeting in a living room, in a bedroom.
It also feels so much about, like, it always makes me think of that quote that a family is only as sick as the secrets it keeps. You know, the inability to talk about or to express the pain or the trauma, you know, and the repression and from all three of them in different capacities, you know, I think and the running away from it, I think is what the play, you know, it's like a tsunami that catches up with you and then comes over you. You can't run, you know, and that's what the play is sort of looking at.
There's a reference of Stanley as being ape-like. Why are you smiling?
Well, because Blanche refers to him as being like an ape.
And then there's a story that you went and looked at video of silverbacks. Sure.
Well, he essentially turned himself into a silverback.
I recognise that on stage every day.
It's like, what? Why are you
Well, the play touches on so many ideas. It seemed like a fair place to start. Was the beginning of man. It's such a.
You went right to evolution, did you?
Well, that's what Blanche says. Blanche says that he is like an ape, like he is
Stone Age.
Yeah, from the Stone Age, and he's the Stanley Kowalski, survivor of the Stone Age. Bearing his raw meat home from his kill in the jungle. He comes home every day with a package of meat that they're going to cook.
And Stanley doesn't like being called names. It's also a play of class. Yeah. It's a play of magic and reality battling each other. It's also a battle of high class, lower class. So having the opportunity to look at apes and call it homework it's not a bad life.
Here's what you said about her. And I'll embarrass you. You said she's one of the most elegant and savage performers you've ever worked with. It's true. What's savage mean?
You need to see the production.
Present. Savage is present.
There's a nimble quality and a ferocity to being present. Anything can happen, and staying in the game is you couldn't ask for something better with a dancing partner. or a boxer.
Or a boxer.
Very, very lucky. These two ladies are big time.
Do you, each of you know each other's lines, and do you have to?
I do now, I think, because I've heard it so many times, yeah.
By osmosis, you just get it.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember saying, like, we actually, on this run, we don't have to worry, because I know if any of us have forgotten anything, which we don't anymore, because it's so in our bodies, but... I can just steal a few yours. Yeah. No, I think we are so... It feels so supported. It feels so connected now.
I'm never off. I'm off stage once when I'm in a bathtub, but I'm on a bathtub in the on set, and so their scene is happening right on the other side of the shower curtain, and I've realized how many times that actually I do know your guys' lines without trying to, without realizing I know what's. I didn't know that.
Is the London audience different than an American audience?
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah.
Why? How? You look at me like you don't want to tell me, or...
I prefer the American one.
You prefer the American one?
Yeah, they seem less ready to judge. It's a very interesting... It's so funny, actually. I just finished a play in London sort of a week before and came over, so I really sensed the difference between the audiences, and also, as a company, also the relationship, the dynamic between audience and actors, I think, is so... It's the vital, it's like the arteries for the play, isn't it? The show. We so, and they become one animal, you know. So we come off stage and be like, oh, that rubbish tonight, like, and we're talking about they as one, you know. It's really incredible, and it's amazing how the minority can affect the majority. And if there's a particularly vocal group, it will spread, and suddenly they'll feel really engaged, and they'll be very vocal, and that feels very comforting and very. But sometimes you can feel that they're standoffish, and it's. I wonder what it's like from that side, but from us, we're very sensitive to...
Well, it's a very visceral production, very sexual production as well. And there's a scene where these two are making love on the bed and the floor, and Blanche and Mitch are on the staircase. And in London, I was aware of the fact that more of the audience was watching us on the staircase. In America, more of the audience is watching the two of them on the bed. Yeah, in England it was a little bit, you know, yeah.
Does every good play affect you in a sense that somehow gives you some insight about life that you didn't have, perhaps?
Oh, yeah. It's a privilege to have an allotted time to meditate on a said material or practice it or explore it. Hearing these words every night, it feels like a prayer. The way that someone may go up on a mountaintop or sit in a cabin or out in the wilderness, we go into a dark room every night and we consider these words in a tactile, visceral way. And we may know each other's lines, but in many ways we try to forget them to hear them anew. That practice...
And to hear the differences and the nuances and everything else.
Every night's different.
By the audience, affected by your mood, affected by everything.
That exchange.
By each other and the exchange and exchanges,
Someone asked me, actually, don't you get really bored doing the same thing night after night? But you just can't, because every moment is new, and every night there's something different that happens.
And
you know, Ben might look at me in a different way.
Still finding stuff.
Finding
Truths
stuff
in
that
the
you wanna
moment,
bring to
and go
Blanche.
and feeling like, you know, that's the way to say that particular line, or that, or going back to the text because something's not working and realizing that the punctuation is different than I had been saying it, you know, that kind of stuff.
It's written as a play. Is it better as a play than a film?
Oh, yeah, I would say so. I would say so.
Yeah.
Having said that, here's Marlon Brando in a scene from the 1951 film. Mr. Foster.
What a mug. What a mug.
He's a good-looking guy.
Oh, my heavens. You can't beat that. You got to go a different way.
You don't want to be thinking about that when you're going your way.
I think you're better.
How is this more sexier? Which I like the idea.
Well, one of the things that our director was playing with, and one of the ways that Stella escapes, is through they have a very, very tangible sexual relationship, Stanley and Stella, and there is, you know, the idea, and tactile, and the idea that both women have found comfort through sex. And well, I'll let you speak for that aspect of it in terms of Stella, because most of the sexuality on the stage. I mean, the minute Stanley and Blanche are in the same room together, it's tangible. And Blanche is, you know, she undresses purposefully in front of the poker players and stands in front of the light, and she's constantly flirting with Stanley. And these guys, and especially in this production, have a very tangible, tactile, sexual relationship that plays out through the whole thing.
Do you have to have some chemistry to do that, or can you simply act it? You have to have.
I'm not that good an actor. I have to have it.
Yes, you are.
We're very blessed on this set.
No, but I mean, people do say that. You know, sometimes you'll watch a film and people will say, I didn't, there was nothing there. I couldn't feel why they were connected, how they were connected, what was going on. I didn't, and as you just said, the reverse of that. You can see.
You have to provoke yourself.
What she's done.
In certain ways. Every night is a new. It's really fortunate to work with people that are appealing and energetic and have a life within themselves. That's appealing. I prefer it when we have chemistry. It's less work for you to do when you don't have it.
Here is a clip from Kate Blanchett, who was on this program, talking about the cultural significance of A Streetcar Named Desire. She played Blanche in the Sydney Theatre's Comedy's production in 2009. Here it is.
I think there are very few theatrical works, very few plays which exist as absolutely in the world of cinema as they do in the theatrical world. And this is a masterpiece in both works. And Alai Kazan's work was clearly groundbreaking, but also the performances that were elicited in that. I think it's a play that we all feel we know perhaps better than we really do, because it exists in the shadow of the film.
But it's interesting because with your question before about whether this would exist as strongly in film, I was thinking about this recently, actually, about whether this particular version of this particular production could have the impact on film that it does in the theater. I mean, people leave in tears, bawling their eyes out. They can't leave their seat. They're completely racked. I don't know whether we could, whether a film version of this would deliver an audience to that same place, and that's part of the tragedy of this and the nature of this particular production. And if you can't do that, then really, what's the point? The point is this moment of it here, live for the audience to experience, and I would question whether it would.
How would you measure this opportunity against all the other things that you have done?
This is probably the hardest.
Hardest?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she's supposed to be, what, Hamlet for women, and it is sometimes, you know, at the beginning it certainly feels insurmountable. It feels impossible. It feels, you know, until you get your rhythm in it, if that the play can sit on your shoulders and you are under it, and that is a terrifying feeling.
Thank you all for coming. It's a pleasure to have you here. I can't wait to get to the theater. I don't have that much time, but I'll get there. It's a magnificent production, and it'll be there till June 4th. Now, I have one silly question. Is this story about James Bond? Because I'm looking, you're saying, am I looking at the next James Bond?
It was started by somebody creating a pretty cool poster with me, and it's just gotten a lot of attention. It means absolutely nothing at all.
Not going to happen. Thank you. Great to see you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. For more about this program and early episodes, visit us online at pbs.org and charlierose.com.